Good evening and welcome to the Get Football Mercato show. Here every weekday to bring you the latest transfer news from across France, Germany and Italy. I'm your host Nathan Staples, and joining me this evening are Claudio Perfetto from Lazio, Andrew Thompson from Get German Football News and Rich Allen from Get French Football News. Let's start with Germany this evening in a deal that's gathering steam as we speak, really, Andrew. Just as we came on, there was more news about Jerome Boateng's potential move to Paris Saint-Germain. What's the latest?
The latest is going to be that, according to Sport Bill, that Christian Nölinger, which is Jerome Boateng's agent, that he'll be conducting talks with Antero Henrique on Thursday. So it looks like the protracted transfer saga is going to come to an end. So I think it looks like PSG got their man.
Yeah, I mean, it would be something that will please both parties in the end. There was a strong push from Manchester United, reports sort of still conflicting over today whether the German international had told Jose Mourinho that he wanted to come or wanted to go. It seemed to throw in both ways depending on who you ended up talking to, but it looks like it will be the French champions that get him in the end. Bayern Munich, although they've had to sort of lower their price from the sounds of things to potentially about 45 million euros from their initial 60 million, will they still be pleased that they can get him out the door for a good amount of money?
I think they will be. I think the most important thing is that every indication that they wanted to sell, But again, as we said before in previous shows, the question now is going to be how they move forward in replacing him, if they even replace him this year. There's been some strong rumors and interest from them for Benjamin Pavard from VfB Stuttgart, but it doesn't seem like they're going to go after him this season, this summer. So that raises questions before that I've talked about in previous shows. They're going to be a little bit thin on center back, so it looks like we're going to see Javier Martinez deputized there again, potentially, or as I said before, if Niko Kovac goes with a three at the back, we might see left back and right back playing in a back three with Nicolas Sula, who seems, or Mats Hummels, depending. So,
and the positive thing, at least for them, is they've at least got a few more weeks to get a deal done should they want to bring someone else in to replace him. On to Italy now, and Claudio, a man that we've spoken about a couple of times, but many thought much more will be spoken about this summer, and that's Sergej Milinkovic-Savic of Lazio. The club have said that they've not really had any sort of movement, and with a couple of days only left of the main destination that many people thought he would be going to, the Premier League shutting, does it look like he'll be staying with the Roman side this summer?
Yeah, for sure. So the president, Claudio Lotito, earlier today had mentioned that he has not received any offers for Milinkovic-Savic this summer, which is surprising because if you would have asked me or anybody really towards the end of the last Serie A season if he would remain at Lazio next year, I think people would have been surprised to hear that he would remain there. But I guess the Premier League is ruled out because of the fact that the window is closing tomorrow. I'd be shocked to see him move there between now and then because there hasn't been any stories really regarding a move to England. Italy, there's about another week, a little bit more for him to move within Italy, but it's going to be tough because not many teams will afford him. Juventus has spent big already, and they might be the only realistic option. But then you have the Milan teams, which AC Milan is in a little bit of an issue with financial fair play. So a move there does not seem realistic as well. And then Inter, of course, are speaking to Modric at the moment. And so I don't know if there's any other team in Italy that would be able to sign him. Maybe down the line, Real Madrid could be a contender, but if Lazio is not able to sell him before they could reinforce, I don't see him moving. So it would have to be done, in my opinion, by the end of the Italian transfer window next week. So it's not likely that he moves.
And it's an interesting one, given that everyone seemed to think that he would be a mover this summer, but maybe because of other deals not going through. You're thinking of obviously Juventus spending a lot of money, so there's no traction in Italy. In Spain's case, the main two there, maybe they're not quite pushing for the big Galactico or the massive signing this summer, although Barcelona's reportedly still in for Pogba. And then you think to the English clubs, Chelsea maybe not having enough to spend, Manchester United probably sorted in that kind of position because they have someone like Pogba. Is that the reason why he's not moved in? Then in the end, it might be another season of him having to show that how good of a player he is, that it forces someone's hand next summer.
Yeah, I'm surprised mostly with the English teams, to be honest, because I personally think he's a perfect fit for the English league because of his physical nature of play. You know, he's very talented and technical, but he also is very physical and athletic. So I always thought he would be a perfect fit for the Premier League. But like you said, it's just the market has not been there for him. And often the market dictates whether a player is going to move or not. And no teams apparently have made offers for him, or at least significant offers, because Lotito said that if he were to sell him, he would want more than what Pogba sold for to Manchester United 2 years ago. So it remains to be seen, but I guess the market has shrunk for him, and that's the reason why he's not looking to move at the moment.
And it's always surprising when such a good player doesn't quite get the traction you expect it to. It's a very, very strange one. On to things in, pseudo-France at least, Richard. It involves a French player in Kurt Zouma, who obviously spent plenty of time in Ligue 1, but a number of clubs after him, Everton reportedly looking at a loan deal, but another side that are looking at him, who are looking for every single defender across Europe at the moment, it looks like, is Manchester United. What do you think to a potential deal? I mean, Chelsea seem a little bit reluctant, given they would have to sell to a direct rival, but it's not something they've not done before for the Red Devils. But at the same time, it'd be nice for Kurt Zouma to maybe make a move that does see him get more first-team football.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's quite a curious one because he's not really done a great deal wrong, but was just an unfortunate victim of a badly timed injury. He'd sort of just got his sort of settled at Chelsea, and then picked up that horrible leg break, which ruled him out for such a long time. I think he got an excellent move to Stoke last season. Whether it was good or not, Stoke were one of the teams I saw more frequently than most other Premier League teams, and he was head and shoulders their best defender. You really saw his quality, and it really wasn't his fault that he was perhaps surrounded by a lot of lesser players. And I was hoping that move would trigger either Chelsea to react and think, actually, you know what, we've got a good defender on our hands here. Let's look at building him into, utilising him in the coming season. Or they do the kind non-honourable thing if they're not, and let him leave in whatever way possible. He's 23 now. I think he's realised that now is the time. He needs to be settling down. Needs to be playing first team football in a team that he can call his own. He's a quality player. There's no doubt about it. He is a really quality player, incredibly athletic, incredibly strong, really quick. I would quite like to see what, I don't say this often with young players and Mourinho, but I'd quite like to see what he could do at Man United. I think he could be an excellent player there. I'm not totally convinced Chelsea will sell to him. I don't quite know why, if they're not planning on playing him. Why? I don't know why they would perhaps keep him. He doesn't even seem to be in the sort of first raft of replacements either. So it would seem curious. So maybe with Everton so keenly pushing for a defender, maybe the loan deal to Everton would be slightly favoured. But if Man United were to come in with 20, 25 million, maybe that would probably get Chelsea's interest. But he is a really good player. He deserves to be playing regular first team football in the Premier League. So it's I would like to see him move. He's clearly not going to be playing for Chelsea, so a move would be best, I think, for all parties.
It's certainly an interesting one, really, because of the two teams that now seem to be fighting for him for different reasons. But given that Manchester United, I suppose, are looking for some kind of centre-back, although they're still rumoured for Alderweireld, for Maguire, for Boateng in some regards to some teams, although that obviously seems fruitless now. But which move would you prefer to see him take, Rich? The Toffees or the Red Devils? Given that the fact that even at United, even if he is the big centre-back signing that they do, he's not necessarily absolutely guaranteed first-team football.
Well, that is the thing, isn't it? Is they have a lot of defenders. They have a lot of defenders there, and a lot of defenders that they've spent quite a bit of money on that still aren't making regular football. I'd like to see him make a permanent move. That would be my preference, just to see that him get settled somewhere. But it's obviously also paramount that he gets that regular first-team football, which I'd have little doubt that he would at Everton. I saw the Everton friendly against the pre-season friendly against Rennes, and Everton were really poor at the back. Jagielka looked well, really, really past it. So they're in desperate need of a bit of freshness in that defence, and he certainly would bring that. I would probably plump for regular first-team football over a permanent destination. So, if Man United weren't going to be able to offer week in, week out football, I'd probably prefer to see him make that loan move to Everton.
Yeah, that's always the thing, isn't it? We just want to see players playing football, and wherever he gets that chance, so be it. Let's go to the roundups now and get strapped in, because there's plenty to talk about this evening, and we'll start in the Bundesliga. And one man who's heading to the Premier League now is the Freiburg defender Soyuncu. Andrew, he's had an interesting rise over the last couple of years, really. Obviously playing second division Turkish football to Freiburg, and now looking like he's heading to the King Power. What kind of player are Leicester City getting?
He's very much a ball-playing centre-back. He's technically very good. Can initiate moves from deep. Can bring the ball out of the back as well. He's more of a modern centre-back. He doesn't, just kind of just sit as, I guess fans of Premier League would think of like a Per Mertesacker type, where you just sit near that defensive fulcrum while others press around you. He's a forward. He's a front forward defender. He came along quite well at Freiburg after he arrived, and he was sounded out by certainly bigger clubs than Leicester over the last year. Arsenal being one of them. Some bigger clubs in Germany as well were interested. It's certainly interesting they ended up choosing Leicester, but for him, it just seems like he just wants to make the next step in a league that might be slightly higher in grade of difficulty. And because all the bigger teams in the Bundesliga aren't really after centre backs this year, I think if he's ready for a move, I think the Premier League would make sense for him. And because there's a more progressive in terms of attacking for the type of centre back that he is, I think it would make sense for him.
And we know what rumours are going to start up now. He's looking like joining for around a £20 million fee that he will sort of free up the space for Harry Maguire to head on. Again, Fox's fans will be desperate to know if he's capable of replacing the Englishman who may be heading to Manchester United. Is he someone that can fit in straight away and will be an asset to the Premier League, or maybe might it take some time to adapt?
I think he can and he will fit straight in. He's younger, so there's still parts of his game where some refinement is needed, of course. But I think this is a longer-term investment for the club. Obviously, given his age, he's not going to be there for a year or two and then shift on. I think he'll actually be a longer-term addition to the club. I think, the way you saw Maguire play at the World Cup and the way you saw him last year for Leicester, I think Maguire is a bit more, I guess brash is a decent term to use than Soyuncu. I think Maguire gets stuck in more. I think he's more of a threat aerially, especially off set pieces, than Soyuncu is. But they're getting a slightly different center back, but they're getting a very quality center back, and I think Soyuncu will actually develop into a better center back than Maguire. And there are quite a few people in Germany who feel like Soyuncu can actually reach the very top level in terms of his ability. It's just a matter of being developed the right way and finding the right club to kick on with. So we'll see if Leicester is that club.
Absolutely. To snatch someone that was always interested in Arsenal this summer, and it looked like he was maybe heading that direction, will be a real positive. On to someone probably heading in the other direction from the sounds of things, and a bit of a left field move, if you ever saw one, really, is Danny Rose, potentially linked with a move to Schalke. It's been a difficult year or so for the Englishman, who obviously was linked with a number of bigger Premier League clubs. Well, I don't want to say bigger, that's maybe a disservice to Spurs fans, but more traditional top four sides, shall we say, in the Premier League this time last summer. But it's all gone sort of 180, maybe heading to the Bundesliga. What do you think to a potential move and how he might be under Domenico Tedesco there?
I think it actually suits him. I think what Rose gives you in an attacking sense, I think you get a decent left back, but I think the questions around him are from a defensive standpoint. And I think in going to Schalke, that actually suits him. They do play a pressing system. They don't actually play with fullbacks, they play with wingbacks. So he'll be further up the pitch. His pace will come into play more. He'll be able to get further forward, try to get service into the air to some of the strikers, the center forward quality that they do have. And it'll mask his deficiencies on the defensive side of the ball. And I think for that type of player, that's what you need. And I think he'll see time there because they're actually, there's a berth there open. Bastian Rosica is actually injured right now, and the only other left-sided, fullback or wingback they have is Abdulrahman Baba, and I don't think he's really kicked on after he broke through with Augsburg and did quite well there. So I think for Rose, I think the Spurs door is closed, but I don't think obviously Premier League clubs aren't going to want to pay what Spurs are going to want, either with the transfer fee or wages. So I think Schalke makes the most sense for him, and even if it's only a loan move, I think he can actually sort of rebound his career on that.
It seems like, especially for English fans, that it might be a bit surprising, but at the same time, the Gelsenkirchen side sort of back on the rise, really. Would he be someone who adds to the quality for them to push in the Champions League as well as domestically again this season?
Yeah, I think so. Again, if you have any criticism of Schalke last season, it was maybe they didn't score enough goals. I think as a unit, they play quite well, and they press quite well. Tedesco's done a wonderful job in just 1 year. And make no mistake about it, Schalke is a domestic giant, and they have the capacity and the ability to become bigger on the global stage in the way that Dortmund kind of did. I think he'll do well there. I think they'll get the best out of him in terms of what they're looking for and what they're actually lacking. And again, there's players on the other end who I think will benefit from him being there. It's just a matter of if he'll take his chances or not.
And let's hope that it would be an interesting move again for an Englishman to head over to Germany and test their talents, but maybe a more experienced one. It'd be a great interest to many. On to our final bit of news in the Bundesliga this evening, and it involves Bayern Munich and Niko Kovac coming out that they're not planning a move for Ante Rebic. Maybe not the biggest sort of story of the evening, but not the most surprising. But whenever a manager joins any club, they think there might be some following, but the Croatian won't be one of those.
No, it certainly won't be, and I think he drew more attention to himself after his performances in the World Cup for Croatia, and certainly in the second half of last year for Eintracht Frankfurt, he did quite well, particularly in the DFB Cup final. But no, Kovac ruled it out. Basically, without reading the quote directly from Sport Bild, he more or less said that they're overloaded at forward positions right now, and going after Rebic wouldn't make sense considering Lewandowski is going to be staying at the club. Thomas Müller is still there, Robin and Ribéry are still there. And also, they have Serge Gnabry is back. So yeah, you have at least 5 or 6 players there who are going to be competing for places. It just wouldn't make any sense for them to make the move at the moment. He didn't necessarily rule it out in the future, but he's just saying for right now, he said, the quote, that we have a high density of quality in this position, so no time will happen after next year or the year after that, but for the moment, they're not going to be able to get a move for him.
And it's not too surprising, like you say, that he's not moving. And Rebic is sort of stalled in the last couple of weeks as well, with the English window shutting as well. Do you think that he looks like he's going to be staying with Eintracht this summer now?
I think he will be staying. I'm actually sort of surprised that maybe there wasn't more concrete interest from some Premier League sides. I think he actually fits the league quite well, given the type of player he is, especially the physical aspect of his game that is coveted by a lot of Premier League managers, despite the quality he actually does have past that. But I also wouldn't be surprised if someone might come back in January for him. I think some clubs are still getting used to the window shutting a little bit early, and certainly foreign clubs are looking at that and saying, maybe we'll do our business after that when the Premier League clubs are out of the running for certain players. So he could certainly attract interest from other clubs, from other leagues, as the remaining week or two of the window, but it won't be from the Premier League. But if he is at Eintracht come January, I wouldn't be surprised if a Premier League side does come back in for him.
it'd be strange to see that he had such a good World Cup and no one really try and take a chance on him. And I'm sure Frankfurt might be just as frustrated as everyone else. On to things in Italy, and plenty of little updates, at least anyway, across the country this evening, Claudio. And we'll start with the big one that we're still crossing our fingers will at least get some motion in the next couple of weeks with this window winding down, and that's Luka Modric to Inter Milan. What's the latest?
So Fabrizio Romano, who's a very reliable and credible source in Italy, just tweeted out recently that Modric is waiting to meet with Florentino Perez, which could happen on Friday. I think Perez had promised to meet with him on Friday, and Modric has to convince the president to leave the club. So it's a difficult task because Real at the moment do not want to sell him. So it's going to come down to the meeting that they have directly face-to-face on Friday.
Absolutely, without a sort of easy replacement, at least anyway, that's not going to cost them an arm and a leg at least as well, or as much as Modric would cost Inter at least. Another player we want to look at who may be heading to Inter Milan is Keita Balde. It's slowed down a little in momentum wise, really, compared to the sort of rush we had earlier this week. Claudio, is there anything further on the potential Monaco man heading back to Italy?
Yeah, so on Di Marzio, we just reported that Inter is still very interested in signing him. Spalletti, the manager at Inter, really wants him. Like you said yourself, when it first came out, it was like a blitz, and it seemed like it was going to be a done deal, but it has slowed down. I think part of the reason why it has slowed down is because Antonio Candreva is involved some way or the other. Monaco would like him, and Inter would like to obviously sell him because they don't really have a need for him any longer, especially if they sign Keita. So it has slowed down, but now the reports are saying that Keita could move to Inter first, and because the French window closes at the end of the month and not next week, they could work on the Candreva portion of the transfer after the Keita portion is finalized. So it's looking positive, but not anywhere close to done yet.
And that one we'll keep a strong eye on. Onto things across town, really, to AC Milan and a couple of deals that have been mentioned to them in the last couple of hours or so, and that one involves a bit of a surprise one in Julian Draxler, maybe a little bit out of favour with those two big men at Paris Saint-Germain, but reportedly been offered to Milan, but there's nothing really concrete or moving end parts. But an interesting one for Milan, an extra attacker if they were to go for him. Would he be someone that would suit them?
Yeah, like you said, there hasn't been any concrete reports, so I take it with a grain of salt. But it is a move that makes sense because, like you said, he might be a little out of favor at PSG. Milan, these are the types of moves they're looking to make, are moves with players that maybe are out of favor, but for them could still be a very big leap up in quality. They have to be very creative with how they sign their players because of the financial fair play parameters. But I don't know. There's going to be a lot of links between Milan and PSG because of Leonardo's history with the French club. So you have to really just be careful with what comes out of there. But it would make sense for both clubs. PSG also is under financial fair play parameters, so they would probably not entertain a loan, which would make things very difficult for Milan. So I don't give this much of a chance at the moment.
No, and that's something Paris Saint-Germain need to really maybe, I don't know, but a move that looks a little bit closer because it would be an initial loan move really is Timu Bakayoko of Chelsea. Is he getting ever closer to entering the San Siro?
Yeah, this one seems like it's moving in a positive direction. Bakayoko, his brother, who's also his agent, was at Casa Milan today to meet with Leonardo and Maldini. Things seem to be moving in the right direction. The formula would be a loan with an option to purchase somewhere between 30 and 35 million. His salary is an issue for Milan because it's quite high, and he would really be brought into the team as a player that can compete with Frank Kessie, because last year Kessie made over 50 appearances for the club and really didn't have a backup or someone who could take his spot. I just think Milan worries about him playing that many games. Number one. Number two, obviously they would like to bring in some competition for him too, because if there's nobody behind him, it might hurt his progression and getting the best out of him. So this move seems like it should be done in the next few days.
And hopefully it means Bakayoko can maybe return to that Monaco film. That'll be a bonus for both of them, really. Final deal in Italy tonight, and the one that sort of sprung up on us very late, and Di Marzio, at least anyway, they're very good at doing that, aren't they, Claudio? And Napoli,
he never sleeps.
Yeah, exactly. And then Napoli looking at another goalkeeper. We mentioned Ospina the other night. We mentioned Ochoa a couple of nights ago as well. The new one on the list is Simon Mignolet. What do we know?
Yeah, so they've been speaking to Ochoa and Ospina from Arsenal over the past few days. They're trying to bring in a reinforcement for Ancelotti once Alex Merritt got hurt. They've been working on getting another goalie. I think part of them, it's not only about Merritt getting hurt. I think they would like to just have another option because Merritt is very young, and Karnezis hasn't been that solid in the preseason. So they would like to bring somebody else in. Now they're looking at Mignolet, who maybe they could get more out of. In Italy, traditionally, the goalkeeping coaches have a tendency of getting the best out of players. Just look at Chesney at Juventus and Roma. When he came from Arsenal, he wasn't very convincing, but they spend a lot of time working with the goalies in Italy. So someone like Mignolet might be able to really take his level up at Napoli. But those are the three right now that they're looking for, and they would like to get something done immediately because the Serie A season starts next week, and I think they would like one of these guys to be the starter when they take the pitch.
And it's a very interesting one as well, given that very much like the Arsenal one, that it's the third goalkeeper really, so it should be you'd think at least an easier deal even when the English window shuts. On to things in France, and the first bit of news does involve an Italian club, because the deal for Kevin Malqui to head to Napoli has been confirmed today. Rich, what man are the Neapolitan side getting?
They're getting a pretty good player. He's very good going forward. Not afraid to really push on. He's got some pace to him. I question his defensive abilities. I don't necessarily think he's right back is perhaps. I know that's where he's played, but he has played further forward before. You've got to be careful and get him very disciplined on tracking back. He has that ability to get forward and then sort of forget about his defensive responsibilities, which is one or two right backs in Liga and quite like that. But for a little over 11 million euros, they're getting an experienced right back. He's played. Lille have had him for a couple of seasons. Got him from Saint-Etienne. He knows that division well. He's played. They're getting a solid right back, if nothing's too spectacular. If that's the kind of player that Napoli want, then great. I don't think it's a particularly huge loss for Lille. Already one or two players rumoured to be in their target to replace Malqui, and I actually think certainly one of them would be a potential upgrade in Rosier from Dijon. But yeah, I think Napoli fans will look forward to see him getting forward. Whether they end up with him being frustrated with a lack of tracking back, that'll remain to be seen.
And it'd be interesting to see how he does there, given that we know Napoli are looking for more depth, especially there with Goulam's injury last season. It'll be important to see if he can maybe add to the quality. Another player, potentially at least anyway, looking to leave Liga is a man we've not mentioned really much at all this summer than we might have expected given the end of his season, and that's Memphis Depay. Has mentioned to beIN Sports earlier, what was it, roundabout sort of earlier today or late last night, it was mentioning he, quote unquote, obviously I would like to move to a bigger club. In fairness, it is framed around what we'll see what happens. He's going to give 100% to the start of the season, but is it really surprising that maybe he's looking to already be moving on to another side, Rich?
No, we know that he's got this about him. We saw it at Man United. We've seen it numerous times at Lyon, where he's expressed that, clearly he believes his talent lies beyond Lyon and somewhere bigger. Probably a few Man United fans might care to disagree with that, but it's hard. It's hard to argue with his form. Certainly since the turn of the year, the second half of the season, he was one of the standout players in Ligue 1. His goals and assists record for those last few weeks was remarkable, and some of the goals he scored were fantastic. Important goals, late goals, big goals. On his day, yes, he is. Lyon fans won't like me saying it. He is better than Lyon, yes, but we don't see that often enough. Now, we saw glimpses that he has the ability to string together good performance after good performance at the end of last season. It'll be up to him now to show that he can go away for the summer, not get the move that he might have perhaps wanted, but come back, work hard, and as he says, he'll give 100%. Well, the proof will be in the match on Sunday, and we'll see whether he's true to his word on that, because there is no reason why he shouldn't be playing as he finished last season. And then if he does, well then, January a move may come. Next summer the move may come. He just needs to prove that he's as good as he says he is, week in, week out. And I feel that if he can do that, he will get his big move. But for the time being, he just needs to be wary of how these comments are interpreted. Olas won't have overly liked the way that message came across, because it's not the first time that he's said things along those lines. But ultimately, if that's what he needs to do to get things off his chest and play as well as he did last season, then perhaps Olas won't mind after all. But it's the consistency. I mean, we've said this numerous times with Depay over the course of his career, but if he can get that consistency, yes, he will get that big move that he wants.
Absolutely, and the important bit as well is to make sure that Lyon keep all those youngsters as well behind him. If should he want to go there, it's a little bit more easy for them to take that blow, despite if he does end up leaving. On to finally a couple of deals that look like they may be in the pipeline, starting with the one at Newcastle. They're looking at they've agreed reportedly, according to RMC, a provisional contract with 19-year-old Valenciennes defender Sikou Niakite. The Ligue 2 side are looking for about €3 million, but the players on Trojan are getting a little bit worried that an agreement with that fee might not be reached in time for that window to close. Valenciennes, a pretty reputable side for bringing in a few young players in the past. Would it be an interesting move for Newcastle, an investment in their future?
It would be. It follows the trend that Newcastle seem to be going at the minute, is focusing on a lot of younger French players rather than their more established players that they perhaps have gone for before. He is a good player. He's a very solid defender, French under 19. The value the value that Valenciennes place on him, it's not particularly big. It seems a little daft that Newcastle are, if they're interested in the player, what's $3 million for Newcastle? It's not a lot, but of course it's Mike Ashley, so he takes it personally if he doesn't get the deal that he wants. Valenciennes seem willing to sell. They've pretty much given the price. If Newcastle want him, Newcastle will have to pay that for him. Valenciennes don't have to sell him. If anything, another season with them or another half season with them will only increase his value. So, I mean, we'll see on that one. I don't think Newcastle are going to have it their way. I think Valenciennes will be quite happy to say, well, it's 3 million or it's no deal. But if they do get him, they're getting quite a promising young defender. Will be interesting to see how he could develop at Newcastle. It's sometimes perhaps not the easiest of places to develop as a youngster, but if they can take him under his wing and give him the protection that any youngster would need, then they could have a quality defender there. And
I think if you walked into a Sports Direct, you might see why why the owners there at Newcastle might be penny pinching sometimes, at least anyway they tend to be. But on to finally the move into Liga, and that's Leo signing Portuguese youngster Rafael Leao on a free transfer from Sporting Club. One of the players that has sort of released himself for his contract earlier in May, given the sort of unpleasant scenes that were happening at their club's training ground. So we'll wait and see if Sporting try and maybe do something after that with it being a free deal. But a 19-year-old prospect linked with a lot of big European clubs. Surely that has to be a coup for Lille when teams like Manchester City, Dortmund, and Juventus are all hunting for his signature.
Absolutely does. I think it represents another really successful, strong signing for Lille, who have made a number of really good signings, I think, this summer. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Man City were rumoured to be looking at a 22, 23 million pound bid for him. There's quality there. He obviously doesn't quite have the experience yet, but there's enough excitement about him that have got those big clubs interested. So it's really good for Lille, obviously, but it's really good for Ligue 1 as a whole that they've managed to swoop in there and sign him, because he has at times looked like he could be a very good player in the future. He's got strength, he's got pace. They're in need of that up front, Lille. He can play a little out wide, although I'd quite like to see Nicolas Pepe, if he remains with Lille, play out there. I think that's a more effective position for him. But to think that he and Leao could form that kind of partnership, I think is potentially really exciting for Lille. And it's another example of the kind of business that actually, when now they've focused on what the real project is, this is the kind of signing that they should have been making last season. Instead of all those, the sheer volume of new young players that they brought in, here is a player that actually, he is a real talent. They've got him in this season. I'm really excited to see what he can do. I've heard a lot of very positive things about him, and you don't get the likes of Man City, Juventus, Dortmund interested in a player like that unless he really does have some potential.
And let's hope for Lido's sake that he may be one of those players that, compared to some of the ones they had last season, makes him maybe a bit more of an impact. But we'll wait and see. That's it for this evening. My thanks to Claudio, Andrew, Rich, and all of you listening at home for your company this evening. Please do join us again tomorrow for the final edition of our Mercato show, because we will be giving you absolutely everything from the barrels of the final day of the English transfer window. Is bound to have plenty of repercussions across Europe as well. So do join us then. Have a good evening.